Yeah, speaking of the sort of occult plans for world domination, yeah, let's talk about the New World Order here.
We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable.
A new world order
It's possible. When do we want it?
And we mentioned how the World Economic Forum, the Davos meeting ended last week, where the Bilderberg meeting happened. I think it ended today or yesterday. We'll probably hear more from that meeting in a couple days here. But I wanted to make sure we document a couple things that came out of the Davos meeting this year, and because they were so open. They're I don't know, they're just not hiding anything about what they're planning to do anymore. And,
the World Economic Forum taking a different strategy. We identified last week, taking a different strategy than the Bilderberg. The Bilderberg group is traditionally very secretive, but the World Economic Forum, recognizing that we're in a new age and that doing everything publicly is the new strategy for world domination. And in the occult schools, especially the more modern ones, things like chaos magic, stuff like that, the more publicly you can perform a ritual, the more effective it is and the more power that it gains. So I think that there's something to that. Whether or not you believe the World Economic Forum is an occult organization in the first place or not, doing things as publicly as they do, saying the ludicrous things that they do in public, certainly has a very powerful effect on their will upon the earth.
And it goes right along the theme of transparency that we've been, at least I've been yelling about for a while now, how they're right. Putting a transparent layer, or what appears to be a transparent, and this is very telling, by the way. So this clip is of a panel meeting that took place at the World Economic Forum, and this clip is of the chair of the Bank for International Settlements. His name is Francois Villeroy de Gaillard. He's a French civil servant and banker, serving as the governor of the Bank of France and ex officio president of the French Prudential Supervision and Resolution Authority since 2015. He's talking about, in this particular clip, the conversation was about global taxes. How do we tax the whole world? And in that context, the topic of cryptocurrencies came up. We're going into our thanking our treasurer.
Surprise.
Yeah. Break here in a moment. But in the theme of that, talk about a little bit of money situations here. And so this is Francois Villeroy de Gaillard on cryptocurrency regulation. And I like the host here. The host asks a really poignant question that I'll point out.
This could be one of the very few good news of the last weeks or months, that we said clearly in the G7 that we appealed for a quick, global, strong regulation of crypto assets worldwide. If we can take this opportunity, we will protect investors and we will preserve the world from an unnecessary fragmentation.
Christine Lagarde said they're worth nothing. Why are we regulating an asset class that has no value?
Because there are...
Did you catch that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Christine Lagarde said that crypto is worth nothing. Why are we spending... What was the question? Why are we putting regulations on things that are worth nothing?
Yeah.
Very good question. Let's hear the answer.
Lagarde said they're worth nothing. Why are we regulating an asset class that has no value?
Because there are several investors around the world, including many young people, who have lost much in recent months. And the illusion...
Yeah. If you were invested in Terra Luna, or just in crypto in general, or all stock markets... Everything went down, dude. Sorry, yelling at the guy.
And the illusion, and frankly it was an illusion, that you can have an investment with high reward and low risk, it should be regulated, explained. There are also anti-money laundering issues. There are some countries like China which intend to prohibit crypto assets. I think it's more innovative and more innovation-friendly to say we regulate them, but it's an emergency question now. And again, we said it last week in the G7. I strongly hope we will have this regulation in Europe this year. We can have it in the US and elsewhere. We will have done our job.
So he's saying right there, our job is to regulate all crypto all around the world. And, we haven't done our job if we haven't. But, man, it's just straight up, talking about China is doing it right. That's not a good sign, folks. If the bank, the head of the chair of Bank of International
the communist dictatorship is once again their model for how to regulate right.
Who's doing
it's
it right?
It's like Justin Trudeau.
China.
It's like
yeah. Unbelievable. So I thought that was very telling and probably a sign of where things are headed here with the World Economic Forum and their whole economic takeover. There's a lot of talk about taking over the whole economy with ESG. We'll get into that in a moment. One more clip from this feller here. This is the same guy, Francois. And man, this one kind of made my blood boil a little bit.
No, I only wanted to bring good news, hopefully, on this tax agreement. We could have good news on the European side, and believe me, having unanimity of EU 27 is not that obvious, but we could have good news till June, and then the good news might cross the Atlantic. And I think there is...
By the way, his good news is a global tax that everyone agrees on. So it's good news for them, but it's not good news for the rest of the world.
There's a sense of common responsibility. What is at stake with this crypto regulation, with taxation? It's not bureaucracy. It's not red tape. It's giving our fellow citizens the feeling that globalization can be fair.
The feeling
that
globalization can be fair. Wow. Tell the truth there, Mr. Francois.
Yeah, he's saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, I mean...
it's not supposed to be...
He catches himself...
Not supposed to say the feeling part.
I think he catches himself because I'll finish the clip out here.
And if we miss these two opportunities, there are examples, but very good example. If we miss these two opportunities, we will have missed something much more dramatic. Because here in Davos, or in this room, we are in favor of globalization, but we must show that it can be fair, green, and bring more social justice. So let us take the opportunity. It's a burning political question.
More bureaucracy, please.
Exactly. Unbelievable. I mean, I was between... China's got it right with crypto, and we got to make sure that the people of the world feel like there's equality.
The illusion. They're illusionists is what they are.
It's unbelievable.
And doing it, even he said it right there, doing it in the name of social justice.
Yep.
Wow, that is brutal.
Isn't that crazy? So I wanted to make sure we document that. I know it's a couple weeks old now, these clips, but it's something to make sure that we keep track of at the very least and put it down on paper or podcast or whatever we're doing here. The other clip comes from Brian T. Moynihan. He is the American investment banker. He's a businessman and chairman and CEO of Bank of America, baby. Woo. Hey, if you got a bank account or ever had a bank account with Bank of America, this guy has probably touched your money. This panel was all about ESG, environment, social, and governance. And this guy, Brian Moynihan, he's been the guy. He's been the engine that's made this thing possible. Listen to him talk about this a little bit here.
Why it's important to get it standardized from really the accounting discipline out, which is the task Emmanuel's taken on, is it's got to apply to the whole economy. Otherwise, the issue will be the activities can migrate away. So that's one key principle, and that's
so first key principle. This thing has to apply to the whole economy. You can't have segregated stuff. It's got to be the entire economy.
Talking about ESG. He's just saying everybody has to participate in this system. And that's been the World Economic Forum's big job in this whole thing, is to sort of campaign for the enforcement of ESG, even if nobody wants it.
Let's hear more.
That's why we supported the establishment of what Emmanuel is going to do, and now he's got to do the work, and we would hope that he would look favorably on the work we've done, but that's his work, not ours. But we were very much for the establishment, and so 2 years ago, we started engaging for the question of establishment, and we got to do the same thing in the U.S. We got to bring in accounting, because once you do that, all companies have to do it. You don't have to debate whether private equity can get out of it. So,
there you go. Once you do it, everybody has to do it. That's been the plan.
It was simplicity. Yeah. Number 2, it had to be all industries. Number 2, you had to get people to voluntarily do it, 160 companies. Number 3, you had to have it consistent with the SDGs. That's why we're here at WEF and stakeholder capitalism. Number 4, you had to get it applied so nobody could hide from it. And then you had to get companies to do it. And that's what we've been about for the last few years. And so that then allowed.
Isn't that crazy? He just lays out like step 1, step 2.
That's so funny, dude, because those are all the points that we have been laying out in real time over the past few
2 years. 2 years.
Every time one of these new steps was taken, it's been our job to analyze, deconstruct, and point it out because it's been kind of happening in secret. If you're not in these top echelons here, or some CEO of some big company or something, you would never know that this was going on. In fact, I was giving a rundown of ESG. This must have been 2 years ago. A rundown to a boomer who I love very much. He's just a boomer, and I was saying, "Hey, have you heard it yet?" And this is a person who has, made a lot of money investing and did very well for themselves, and is a participant in the system. And I'm like, "Oh, have you on this ESG thing yet, man? It's happening. This is what it is: environmental, social, and governance." And laid the whole thing out. And they looked at me like I was some dumb kid talking about. They looked at me as if I was trying to tell them about Bitcoin or something, like a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And just because they had never heard of it before, then I must have been, either making it up or just on some weird blog or something.
Stop watching Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, and everything, our entire work. For 2 years, Gons, this guy just came out publicly and said it.
He's not done.
Laid it out in 30 seconds, what took us 2 years to deconstruct what was happening in secret.
Well, at least, it's a good confirmation, at least for us, that we were on it. Like we were accurate in what we were seeing with what they were saying and reporting. So that's a good sign, I guess.
I should feel good about it, but it's actually really annoying me
troubling.
Right now. This is really annoying that he's doing this.
Back it up a little bit and then continue here.
Number 2, it had to be all industries. Number 2, you had to get people to voluntarily do it, 160 companies. Number 3, you had to have it consistent with the SDGs. That's why we're here at WEF and stakeholder capitalism. Number 4, you had to get it applied so nobody could hide from it. And then you had to get companies to do it. And that's what we've been about for the last few years. And so that then allows you then to leverage. So where do they go next? More companies. And it becomes a thing that you can say, hey, I'm an investor, and we have a $4 trillion investment portfolio. Wait, that company's doing it. Why can't you? If you can't show me the same statistics, maybe you aren't running your company in a way that would be consistent with long-term value creation for your shareholders, et cetera. And that gives the investors, the consumers, and all the other constituencies, the bondholders, a consistent way to see across companies and a bar, not the best company, because there's going to be one of those and all the capital can't go to one company. The bar of which you're below, people shouldn't invest in you. They shouldn't lend to you. They shouldn't do business with you as a customer. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, that's where we are. More companies drive it through and then engage to help make the business-led transition has to occur, and then have people be able to understand it's occurring and hold us accountable for the occurrence, and that's what goes for these standards. If you want to get to 2050, if you want to get Paris aligned, if you want to get diversity boards, if you want to get fair taxes paid, if you want to get all these things which are in the SDGs and the metrics, if you want that, the companies have got to go out and do it.
This was the big theme throughout the whole Davos thing was the merging of government and private corporations.
Well, and that's what stakeholder capitalism is. We called it, deconstructed it in 2016, which is and here's the, for those who may have missed some of this stuff, ESG is the environmental social governance label that gets put on big companies to say, oh, you're doing good. You're a good boy. You are following the rules. You're social justice oriented. You're protecting the earth. You're equality, equity, all this stuff. It's the social justice-y tag for companies. And right now, they have started labeling these companies and creating indexes for ESG indexes. That's what S&P ESG index is. It's an index fund that only invests in ESG approved companies. Now, he just said it outright right there, is that ESG is a control mechanism. And here's a great example of it. You know who is ESG certified, Gons? Pretty much the entire military industrial complex.
Oh,
Halliburton
really?
and Raytheon and all these companies,
wow,
the
okay.
literal death dealers
What about
of our planet.
my local mom and pop shop? Are they
Hold
ESG
on.
compliant?
Because this is the greatest part. You have companies like Halliburton, literal death dealers that promote and lobby for war, creating, weapons that get sent off to wherever war, it doesn't matter. Their whole business is killing humans in an efficient manner. And they cheer when people die, because that means that a bullet has been fired and they got to sell another bullet. They are environmentally and socially and governance
my gosh.
approved. And you know who isn't?
No.
Tesla. The company that probably has done.
Yes.
I'm just talking in the context of the, if I were a ESG person, Tesla has done more to protect the environment than any other company ever. Basically made electric vehicles cool and started the entire revolution. And, if any company deserves an ESG rating, it's Tesla. However, because Elon became a Republican and a conservative, what is revealed is that ESG is a weapon. It is a control mechanism. And S&P 500 took Tesla away. They took their ESG rating away. Why? Not because they, sell weapons that kill children in other countries or that they whatever. No, it's because there was some complaints at the company that women were getting snarky comments made to them, and he offered to buy someone a horse and stuff like this. And that they used that to take away Tesla's ESG rating. Now, we live in a world where Halliburton and Raytheon and
Exxon. Exxon is the leading company in the index.
ExxonMobil. You remember that company? Yeah, the one that's single-handedly responsible for the death of 43 trillion fish or something. Oh, they're a responsible company. But Elon? No. He votes Republican now, so we snatch away his ESG, and that's how it's used. It's not just about, are you a good business or not, or are you investable or not? No. It is a control mechanism, and that's the stakeholder capitalism, because stakeholder capitalism puts private-public partnerships at the core as a principle, which I could walk you through the whole thing. The long story short is that companies have more say in world governance than governments do. And when you don't line up with the governing agreement of what they want for the NWO 2.0, they take away your ESG and you're not allowed to be in the government anymore. You're not allowed to be a world ruling corporation anymore. And they've done a wonderful job. And that is just a long way of explaining in more words what this guy literally just came out and said publicly. That's taken us 2 years of research and work and deconstruction to keep everybody up to breast with. So if you're a listener of this show for any amount of time, you already know all this. But if there is someone in your life who does not know all this, go to Canary Cry Clips, grab this segment, send it to them, and hopefully this will be a little bit of a wake-up call for the world.
Now, I did hear, and I haven't been able to confirm this or see any other reports, some of the Elon ESG stuff, according to some of the elite people there, they're not worried about Elon with Tesla dropping off the ESG list because I think they were saying how it's only on one metric. Like there's like other metric systems where they look at Tesla and they're fine there.
Right.
So
it's like a rating. It's like a credit score type of thing, which is also the sort of proto social credit score. It's a social credit score for companies is what it is. Yeah. And he was really only dropped off the S&P 500 ESG index. To be clear, they did not fully lose their entire ESG rating. It was just S&P 500 took them off of an index. But it's a good example of how the control can be wielded.
Right. Yeah. I said ESG stands for evil satanic governance, but I think we're going to add goblins. Evil satanic goblins. ESG.
There it is.
Yeah. Real quick here. Obviously, the Bilderberg meeting was over the weekend, and The Guardian had this article. Bilderberg reconvenes in person after 2-year pandemic gap. And it was published on the 4th of June. And it says
I love the language. I love the language they use in this article.
Bilderberg is back with a vengeance.
Oh.
A vengeance, really. After a pandemic gap of 2 years, the elite global summit is being rebooted in a security-drenched hotel in Washington, D.C., with a high-powered guest list that includes the heads of NATO, the CIA, GCHQ, the U.S. National Security Council, 2 European prime ministers, a healthy sprinkle of tech billionaires, and Henry Kissinger. New World Order, man. What a difference those 2 years have made. The Western world order, which the Bilderberg Group has been quietly nudging into shape for the best part of 70 years, is in all kinds of flux. Back in 2019, the last time Bilderberg met in the flesh, the conference kicked off with the optimistic topics, quote, a stable strategic order, and, quote, what's next for Europe? This year, however, the agenda reeks of chaos and crisis. Top of the schedule is the blandly terrifying item, quote, global realignments, followed by, quote, NATO challenges, the biggest of which is obviously Ukraine. To be sure, Washington Conference is a high-level council of war, headlined by the Secretary General of NATO, Bilderberg veteran Jens Stoltenberg. He's joined at the luxurious Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Oh, good. It's a Mandarin hotel, too. By the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova, and the CEO of Naftogaz, the state-owned Ukrainian oil and gas company. And it goes on here, all the things they're going to cover, and Vladimir Zelensky, and the Great Reset. It does mention this. Many consider it, and this is it, talking about the European Council, an older, less flashy Davos staged annually by the World Economic Fund. The two events have a good bit in common, namely 3 WEF trustees at this year's conference, and Klaus Schwab, the grisly head of Davos, Grizzly, is a former member of Bilderberg's steering committee. His Great Reset looms large over Washington Conference with, quote, disruption of the global financial system at the heart of the agenda. I mean, they're just straight up. This is The Guardian. This isn't some blog.
Yeah. No, I know. This is the type of language that was considered, conspiracy theorist gobbledygook, and now it's just, mainstream description of what we've been talking about for years.
Mm-hmm. This year's conference lineup, led by the CEA head, William Burns. Bill Burns reflects those roots. Bill Burns is the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. And then it says here, 4 other active intelligence chiefs are attending. The head of the UK's government communications headquarters, the director of France's external intelligence agency, DGSE, the leader of the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. Former spy chiefs at the talks include David Petraeus, CIA, and Sir John Sauer, M16, now a board member of Bilderberg and BP. And of course, holding court at the hotel bar will be Klaus Schwab's mentor, Henry Kissinger. Incredibly, Kissinger, 99, has been attending Bilderberg since 1957. And this is where it gets, this is the last part of the article, which I find very fascinating. The Prince of Realpolitik has been the ideological godfather of Bilderberg for as long as anyone can remember. And he's recently co-authored a book, The Age of AI. I didn't know this. I didn't know Henry Kissinger had published a book called The Age of AI with Bilderberg steering committee member Eric Schmidt. Hey, that's former Google. And if you guys are aware of our history of reporting on stuff like this, Eric Schmidt was recruited. Part of his recruitment process was the Google execs watching and observing how he reacted at Burning Man. If he would, what was it, like mingle with the crowd or something like that? It was some weird.
Well, it was like, to see how. Well, they basically took him to Burning Man and just see if he could handle it. And if he could handle it, then he was hired.
Right.
And I'm sure they dosed him and they got him. It's like a psychedelic job interview.
Right.
And apparently he did pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. The former head of Google in this year's Washington conference is notably rammed with AI luminaries, from Facebook's Yan LeCun to DeepMind's Demis Hassabis. Bilderberg knows that however the global realignment plays out, and whatever a reset global financial system looks like, the shape of the world will be determined by big tech. And if the end game is, quote, continuity of government, as the agenda suggests, that continuity will be powered by AI. Whatever billionaire ends up making the software that runs the world, Bilderberg aims to make darned sure that it has its hand on the mouse.
Yep. You know what? I love that they end. I love that they end it like that, because, again, that is just something that we would have said in a podcast 10 years ago, and back when we were a crazy conspiracy podcast and not like the new mainstream, basically. Because just like we're saying, this transparency you're talking about, the openness, the publicity of what they're trying to do, and it's, you know what? It straight up is exactly what we've been saying, and now you have the mainstream coming out and defending it.
Yeah.
The brainwashing is so complete and so strong. Did you read through this whole thing? There's this one paragraph in here. You may have skipped it. Bilderberg is sometimes dismissed as a talking shop or crazed imagining of conspiracy theorists.
Right.
But in reality, it is a major diplomatic summit attended this year, as ever, by extremely senior transatlantic politicians, from the U.S. Commerce Secretary, President of the European Council, etc. You may have already read it, but I love it. They admit right there, like, we know this sounds crazy. It was supposed to sound crazy, but it's the real deal now, and this is what's happening, baby. AI coming for you. And when it comes to the reset of the global financial system, and as much as the World Economic Forum is the star of that show, the Bilderberg Group, they're going to get theirs.
Well, and the common theme among both the Davos stuff that we saw and what we're reading here about Bilderberg with AI is the merging of government and big tech. And that was the big theme of Age of Deceit 3. The thesis behind it was that perhaps some of these animals that are described in Revelation and also in Book of Daniel, the lion, the leopard, the bear, perhaps, because traditionally they've been translated or commented as, they're just nations. It's Medo-Persia. It's, whatever, the territorial stuff, geopolitical stuff going on. And certainly that's something to keep in mind, especially with the splitting of the West and the East that we're going through right now. But ultimately, the ones that really hold the power, the stakeholders, that will be sort of irrespective of geography. It'll be this beast thing that is a corporate/state. So I think that's what we're seeing here with AI and big tech and all the conversation. And ESG is helping to facilitate that change. And, it's really interesting. I didn't clip it, but the same guy, Moynihan, at the beginning of his talk, he talked about, we did the analysis and we figured out what exactly all the metrics and da-da-da-da-da. And then we had to fit capitalism into it. Like, we had to get capitalism to adopt to, or like to conform to those rules. If we can merge capitalism into it, then we'll really have something. And
Exactly.
it was all a big financial thing in their minds, obviously, but there is a bigger geopolitical world instituting / spiritual agenda at play here, and I think that's what we've been screaming into computer monitors for a decade.